I'm Joseph Staten. I'm the director of cinematics. I basically am in charge of making the movies, telling the story.
I'm CJ Cowan. I am a cinematic designer.
John Buckus, animator.
This is a scene that used to happen in the middle of the control room level, where the Arbiter comes across Sergeant Johnson, basically about to be executed by some brutes.
This one will do. Kill the other.
Yes, Chieftain. A day's ration says I do this in one cut.
2 cuts, at least.
You're on.
This was going to be sort of our big, crazy fight scene that John and I cooked up, and John did most of the good choreography for it. And then we decided to simplify things. I don't know, what would you add to that, John?
How do you mean simplify? By cutting it?
Yeah, right. By saying, this is stupid. No, I think if you watch it, you'll see that there's just a ton of really great action, which I think ultimately decided one was really hard to animate given the time that we had. So it was a fight scene that we wanted the player to actually do himself.
Run.
I always wanted to have some big rumble between the Arbiter and a bunch of the brutes. You don't really ever see these guys go at it unarmed, and this would be the one great situation where you see, look at that, whoop, ah! Look at that choreography, oh, in the face. There's still a small part of this cinematic that is in the game. We still have basically the end of this cinematic where the Arbiter and Johnson are talking about what they're going to do, how they're going to actually make it to the control room to take out Tartarus. We wanted to get Johnson safely into the Scarab before the player could get control of things, and that's what actually happens in the real game.
Tell me, human, can you drive a Scarab?
This would lead into some gameplay. And the cool gameplay, of course, is the Arbiter riding on the Scarab tank while Johnson was driving it.
They're gonna know we're coming.
This is the scene that used to be called the mural scene, and you're about to see why. This is our big chance in the middle of the game to give the player a really clear understanding of the Covenant religion, explain how it's actually set up, what they believe in, and why. I think the original Videomatic that we're looking at, it probably gave the player too much information. I think we were trying to sell the Covenant side of the story a little bit too hard.
What has happened?
The prophets blame us for that braggart Regret's demise and decided to replace our best warriors with these imbeciles.
But I think the cool thing, if you look at the real cinematic in the game, the one that evolved from this, we picked the most important things, which were the changing of the guard, the relationship, the uneasy relationship between the Spec Ops commander and the prophets, and then the sort of conniving way that the Prophet of Truth gets the player, the Arbiter, excited about going and completing his task. Those sort of 3 critical moments are still in the real cinematic, but they're done much more efficiently.
This is kind of the very beginning of the realization that the Covenant is starting to fall apart, where the elites are kind of being ushered off to the side by the prophets, and the brutes are kind of coming in, and nobody really knows what's going on. The Spec Ops commander's like, I don't know why we're being kicked out.
It was clear the elites could no longer guarantee our safety.
But we have always been your protectors.
These are trying times for all of us.
We have this fantastic story arc that we're trying to get across, and we have all this backstory that we're trying to get across. And there comes a point where we look at the amount of time that we have left to finish this game, and we realize that we're just crazy. We're not going to be able to do all of this. And so we pick our battles with, what we can cut out. And essentially, we're not losing that much by the cinematic that replaces what you see here.
How well do you know the Writ of Union?
As well as I did the day I swore my oath.
Recite the first canto.
So full of hate were our eyes that none of us could see. Our war would yield countless dead, but never victory.
So let us cast arms aside and like discard our wrath. Thou in faith will keep us safe whilst we find the path. Hungry for power and dominion, our ancestors met on the field of battle. Indeed, I suspect we would still be at each other's throats had the prophets not found evidence of the Forerunners and their great journey.
The murals on the wall, essentially, they walk you through the 7 stages of the formation of the Covenant. From the earliest time when the elites and the prophets were actually mortal enemies and fighting each other, up to the sort of present day where both species, in conjunction with a handful of others, grunts, etc., are actually looking for the halo ring. So as you look at the first mural, you'll see it's a representation of the conflict between the prophets and the elites, and this one shows sort of the elites' function in the Covenant, which is as the enforcers.
While some were short-sighted and chose to reject the promise of our union, all were eventually swayed by the knowledge that those who joined the Covenant would be welcome on our great journey.
This one here shows what the prophets do, which is essentially search through old Forerunner ruins and find artifacts. And one of the most amazing things they found as they searched was this myth of 7 rings created by the Forerunners scattered throughout the galaxy. And this myth of the rings became the thing which drove the creation of the Covenant, is the foundation of their religion, which is a belief that these rings are sacred objects that will, if activated, make you a god.
For an instant, our Lord's most splendid creation revealed its hidden power, a divine wind that would rush through the stars.
I think that there's a great push in games these days to throw everything in first person and to essentially remove any letterbox cinematic time. I think a lot of people are moving in that direction. I think our job is to, as efficiently as possible, bracket in letterboxes those critical things the player has to know and tell them in a way that's epic and moving that you just can't always do in first person. But we don't want to keep the player in this little rarefied special world too long. We want to give him some questions, give him some answers, but then send him back out into the sandbox. So this is a great example of a 6-minute thing that we decided, we can really do this in about 4 or 3.5, or maybe even less than that. And let's take that other stuff and let's sprinkle it around in all the different levels. And I think ultimately the player not just appreciates that more, but it makes it a richer game experience.
Robert McLeese. Mainly, I make guns.
My name is Marcus Leto. I am the art director for Halo 2.
My name is Shikai Wang, and I'm a conceptual artist for Halo 2.
Look, it's the blind wolf.
The beloved blind wolf.
That was back when you could ride it.
Yeah, you could actually mount the thing and ride it. AI couldn't handle it on the AI side. Couldn't flock them. Couldn't fit them into gameplay.
Oh, it's nothing on our end.
No,
It's always the programmers.
we had it all.
Hey, the Drenal. Yeah, hey.
Drenal was a big deal.
Hulk.
Giant boss character. And we'd always thought the Covenant kept this thing, all tied up and enraged.
Right.
And it would bring it out during the frontline battle.
It would have been a cool boss character.
I think he was just too damn big.
Good vehicle smasher, it would have been good.
Yeah. That was the special purpose sniper guy, right?
We wanted him to have his arms used as a tripod, and he can actually flip left to right, side to side, so without having to switch weapons or something.
We had him
silly.
being able to hang from trees as well and do some weird stuff like that.
He got pretty far too. We actually textured him and got into the game and stuff.
It took that long to figure out that.
Yeah.
He's a piece of crap.
This is the engineer.
We got this into the game.
It's actually
fully
Halo
modeled,
1,
textured. It was a technological savvy character that would rip apart technology and
Idiot savant.
consume it for the Covenant. This is probably the weirdest character I've seen in our sketchbook.
Marcus said we needed a character that was more menacing because every one of our characters looked too.
We needed something more
kitty-like.
monster-like.
We were just trying to go have a physique that's like biped, but doesn't behave like a biped. So you have all these parts that are missing and all these limbs that are extra limbs.
Oh, this guy's cool.
I like this guy. He was supposed to carry his weapon under his belly.
Beginnings of the Hunter, I think.
There you go, Rob.
It's the what
Gator,
was it?
Doberman.
Doberman Gator or the yeah. And then the keel bug, which was my idea for cleaning up bodies on the battlefield. It would a few of them would fly in and cut the body into sections and fly off.
I like the wing where it actually distorts.
It made no sense.
That's cool.
I think it was a strike fighter, right? It was like a defensive fighter for the Earth space.
Well, it just didn't fit into our gameplay either. We didn't have we didn't have a purpose for this kind of thing.
That's cinematics.
Yeah, it'd be a cinematic only thing.
We needed more of a Black Hawk type vehicle, which also got dropped. Dude, I so wanted this vehicle to get into the game.
The doozy.
Precursor to the doozy.
Yeah.
This didn't make any sense.
Didn't that thing eventually wind up getting a gun on the back of it, or?
No, two people got one gun in the front, one in the back. And then
one guy facing backwards.
Yeah.
The nausea seat.
Yeah. Hovercraft were kind of a strange thing back then, especially ones that we needed to remain stationary at a certain altitude. That we had a very difficult time with some of those. It would have taken a long time for us to tune the engine physics to make it work right.
Oh man, this is the mongoose.
The ATV.
Yeah, I got cut.
We had weapons on the front of it initially. We tried no weapons. The designers couldn't figure out how to integrate it into gameplay. It didn't work in conjunction with vehicles like the Warthog or the Ghost. This broke the model too much. Can't tune it well enough, so we had to cut it out.
This is disappointing as well.
Yeah. We've tried so hard to get this thing into the game. We had effects, model, we even reiterated it.
Yeah.
Rob did for Halo 2.
We built it. The most difficult model to build that I did in Halo was the most difficult rebuild for Halo 2.
Yep. Looked beautiful too. Sure, it sucks. Yeah, it's all this good stuff we want to get into the game, but you know, that's part of making games.
Oh my god.
Love it. So you didn't know we're gonna start this far back?
So are those like newer guys or are those the old guys?
Those are the super old, like,
those are the old, like,
guys.
Hey, that looks like the back of my dog.
Okay, so this is Sheik, Rob, and Paul, and Marty making sound effects.
Now we're out on the road? Who thought this was going to be cool?
It's like myth.
Oh yeah,
my
well
God.
of course because that's what it was. This is
Myth
dance, and there's like one of the old busted up bunkers.
Now, was that made out of like igloo blocks?
No, I think it was just busted up.
Okay.
Is it the
Floating.
Hummer?
And the Humvee.
Yeah, the Hummer.
That's the first version of the Warthog, I guess, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's the old version of the Ghost.
Yes, the one right to the left corner in the gray, right next to the Jeep.
What year is this now?
This is
1948.
98, I think.
Yeah.
Seriously, this is what, 1990?
This is 98. Hey, we had detail objects back then?
What detail objects are you talking
There, look
about?
on the ground, see?
Oh, the old broken Halo. The little railroad track.
That's a little prelude to what happens in the future. See, that's
there's
old.
the Warthog.
Oh man,
is,
look
like,
at the
looking
old
more like
stealth tank that never got in the game.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the guy still has the assault rifle across his shoulders.
Yeah, that still looks cool, man. I don't know why everybody says that still looks cool.
So that looks like a Warthog.
Yeah, it's a Warthog.
Kind of. I mean, the textures are so low res. I mean, that's cool, you know.
Yeah, I think we were using 128s or something at that point.
Whoa.
And people probably want to know why we switched from third person to first person. Because Jason.
Well, he was the one that was dead set against first person for a long time.
Yeah, and then
right?
he's like, hey, wait, we can't make third person work. Hey, let's change it back.
That's what happens when your lead is a crack addict.
Oh, dang. That was Paul Russell, former Bungie employee.
Here's
control
the
room.
old control room.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, I have a sense of awe.
Dude, this is cool.
Oh, what's up at the?
Oh, yeah, this is the first time we
the
had
big
a
mirror,
mirror
right?
and stuff.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is
Macworld
Macworld.
99.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh man.
So we actually tried to play
Watch out for that tank.
multiplayer on this thing with third person once, and then it's just impossible.
It just
to keep
turned
people.
into a like grenade juggling act.
Yeah, just because you just can't aim for crap.
Yeah. Now does that? Yeah, that actually had like the disintegrating belt. It created like twice as many particles as it
Oh, really?
needed to.
Yeah.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had trouble
smooth transitions.
transitioning between the exterior
control
engine
room.
and the interior engine.
Yeah.
Let's look at all the
It's getting close.
hologram thing.
What happens when you paint it?
Yeah, look at that hologram. Wow.
Yeah, none of this stuff ever got used in the
Ever got
original one.
used.
Oh, this
Getting
is
closer.
actually had the map up in the upper.
Oh, this is the E3 one.
This is the E3, E3 2000. Yep.
There's
It's
some
still PC
going
though.
on there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I kind of like the old ones where the reflection maps weren't circular. It was just planar. That was cooler.
Boy, that's when the artist knew how to draw skies, though.
I
feel moist.
Oh man. I feel
the cannon off the back.
good.
We would have had like 30 different guns in that thing.
That's right.
If it would have been up to me. Yeah.
Go in the water. Go in the water.
Well, you know,
I'm seeing
it's
everyone
like,
go in the
come on
water.
to Microsoft and oh, by
Hey,
the
look,
way, you
nothing.
only have 5 months to make your game.
Well, it was either that or never release it and
Yeah.
then go look for other jobs.
All right, man, here we are.
Yeah.
Everybody out.
Yeah, as you can tell, there's no AI at all. Everything was scripted in E3.
What? Are you saying E3 was smoking me?
We outsourced it to a post-production house.
To Henson.
Okay, Rob.
Wow, yeah, there's the alien sniper rifle, the plasma sniper rifle. Here's the old AR. Oh, and here's the anti-air rocket launcher.
It's got that magic pocket that can fill up with anything.
Yeah, there it goes.
Doesn't explode.
There's the pistol.
Look at all the cool weapons we had.
There's
before.
the anti-armor rocket.
How much do we get to keep from all this? Like 5?
Which one is that? That's the shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. The SMG. Holy, what the hell?
Nice effect.
It's a fire hazard. What? This is it?
What? This is it?
Bet you can't stick it.
You're on.
Here is the space station. I think the main gist of what we were trying to achieve with this at the very, very beginning was the idea of this giant perimeter gun that orbits the Earth and is used for satellite defense.
One thing I really liked about the space station was how you could actually really have a sense of where you were in the station with all the windows looking out onto the gun, like all these atrium spaces where you've got a lot of sight lines to other parts of the station that you later get to. Unlike the Pillar of Autumn, you really didn't have a sense of how big the structure was.
That leads us onto Old Mombasa. We had a lot of destruction present in this to really try to set the mood of the Earth being under attack. It was sort of an inspiration of what would an old ethnic neighborhood look like in the future. So a lot of stuff has been retrofitted with wires, and it was a nice way to transitions into the newer architecture, which you eventually get to after you play through the beach and the tunnels and all that. And you eventually end up over what we call New Mombasa.
A lot of the look and feel of the city was based on either concepts that were painted or from actual photographs of the current city of Mombasa that exists in Kenya. And so that's why it seems familiar. At the same time, we've tried to add as simply as possible signs of 500 years of human advance.
It sort of still harkens to the arcology concept that Chris Lee was working on a long time ago for the E3.
You'll see a lot of architecture here, like this large bridge. There's some highway sections, and then the new city. And the reason why the arcology was replaced is because it was such a massive structure that you really felt like you were just in a gray metal canyon and not in a living city nearly as much as the new level. So hopefully it was a change for the better.
Gas Giant.
Dave's baby. It's big.
Worked on this
big
for
baby.
Too long, too many years. It was satisfying to play through it. I played through it today, and I think successfully. The production half of it feels like, okay, this is where they're moving these odd canisters full of gas that they're farming. I think there's a good transition from that to the research area where this predates the Halos. Their idea for this is where they first sort of came into contact with the Flood and had this horrible potential war in front of them or infestation.
Okay, here we go. Sentinel Wall. This is where things start to cook up story-wise.
This wall was built by the Forerunners to keep the Flood quarantined into a specific area on Delta Halo.
Even the exterior of the quarantine zone is supposed to reflect the barrenness and the lack of life that the Sentinels have been trying to instill in the area by starving it of light and energy and heat and all sorts of good things, and so that's why it's so cold. And we're now at High Charity.
We definitely took a departure from the Covenant stuff that we did in Halo.
We're able to squeeze the most out of the Xbox and actually do all the fancy curves and shiny surfaces that we had drawn out.
We chose a different palette for colors.
Yes, purple.
A lot darker.
Much darker purple than
Much darker purple, desaturated.
More
a
mauve
little
tones
bit,
of
yeah.
Halo 1.
But we pulled off a much better organic feel to everything, which was really kind of neat. And so the lighting is going to be very dark and moody.
So now we're looking at
the Delta Halo. It's really cool. It has a lot of beautiful water shots. I think some of the really good overgrowth throughout all of it.
Yeah, we definitely put a lot more attention onto making Forerunner structures look like they've actually aged. First game, they were pretty spick and span. It's somewhat reminiscent of the first control room in terms of its sort of the ziggurat structure that Chris Barrett did in Halo 1. We wanted to relate to that in the spherical room shape, or the control room shape, but unearthed it a lot more.
I think this is really where we hit our stride because the sheer scope and scale of all these levels.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge.